Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and Kwisatz Haderachs, presented by Bolin Media. I'm Ross Bolin here with Barrett Dudley to discuss episode 5 of Dune Prophecy from HBO. Penultimate Prophecy, Barrett.
Penultimate Prophecy. Hey, I've got a question for you before we dive in.
Yeah.
If you buy a used car from Carvana, are you leaving the Carvana license plate thing on?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, okay.
This came up for me last week.
Did it really?
I was
Yeah?
in traffic and I was behind somebody who had one of those, and I was like it clearly wasn't brand new. Like
I just
plates.
saw one, and that's all I could think about is like why you would leave the Carvana thing on there.
I don't even get it when people leave the the
dealer.
dealership on there, or sometimes
Yeah.
the dealer adds a decal to the back of cars.
Right.
I'm like, I don't want this. What
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah.
Your branding? I'm just advertising you for free?
But the Carvana especially is like, not that there's anything wrong with buying a car on Carvana, but it's just like, I'm not trying to advertise that either.
Not for free.
Not
It's like when you have somebody come and do your roof or like install a fence in your backyard or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're like, hey, if you let us put this sign out front,
Right.
we'll knock like 5% off the price or something like that.
Sure.
Like if you're going to pay me, and maybe this is just the result of having done podcasting for so long and relying on sponsors for my livelihood that I'm like, no freebies.
Yeah.
But I've never understood it, man. The license plate thing bugs me.
Yeah.
If you got one of those on your car, take it off. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're just giving it away.
Yeah, just order one like from like your university or like a plain metal one or
Come on.
it's a funny one. Maybe there's some Dune ones out there.
People just
you
don't
know?
care.
Yeah, they don't.
But they should.
But I notice.
They should. You're slutting your car out, and it's not right. It's not right. Oh, man. Okay, you want to do any thoughts up top about how you felt about this one, or you want to do it as we go?
Let's see. Thoughts.
Thinking.
Mostly I just want to jump quickly straight to the thing, the big reveal, only to say that while we didn't predict this exactly, we did ask aloud whether there could have been a baby.
Right.
And then we also consistently said that they very clearly leave a large gap that is untouched in between the slaughter of the Atreides and where we are now.
Yeah.
And I think we knew that like whatever happened over that course of time was going to be important, and something that they were going to come back to. And finally they start to do that with a big reveal in this episode. So that was fun to get. That was fun to see before heading into the finale of the season. Also, I mean, you've been beating this drum for many episodes now, and I think there's already murmurs of season 2 being in pre-production or at least being written. I don't know if it's even been greenlit, however, or at least not
announced.
Not announced. But yeah, this is not a one-season show. Nothing is really going to be wrapped up here at the end. Although, I'm not going to be surprised, I guess, one way or the other, whether Desmond Hart is still around at the end of the season or not. But yeah, they definitely had designs on going multiple seasons with this.
He could just be your season 1 big bad.
Right.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about the penultimate before we get into the details is that it feels like all of this has been like this slow setup for this huge twist. And not what we get in this episode I would not consider to be the huge twist. It was a twist, but I wasn't like, oh my God.
Right.
They're going to need an oh my God moment here in the finale for me to feel like the show was pretty good.
Okay.
It's kind of hovered in the same area for me the whole season. Like it's definitely not bad, but what I couldn't get out of my head when this one wrapped was like, with everything there are comparisons, comps. Mm-hmm. We'll call them comps. Yeah. Like when you're trying to buy a house.
Yeah.
My comp for this is going to be Foundation.
Yeah, okay.
And I couldn't stop thinking about how much better Foundation is than this show.
Yeah.
When the penultimate ended. And it's not necessarily so much a knock on Dune Prophecy as it is crediting Foundation on Apple TV Plus with being a really good sci-fi show.
Yeah, I think it can be both, honestly. But yeah, can you kind of like, have you tried wrapping your arms around why that is?
I mean, I think it's what we touched on last week. I'm just not particularly invested in any of these characters. Like, I think Desmond Hart is a cool character. The more we've gotten of him, the more I'm like, all right, yeah, this is fun. The Empress is kind of a cool character now, but she hasn't really been the rest of the season.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just not like,
Yeah, for me, the person that I feel like most like rooting for at the moment is actually Hawk Tula.
Yeah.
And that's like just now coming on, and I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to be, right? Like, is she supposed to be kind of like is she a protagonist here? I don't know. Like, what? I don't know what's happening.
She still feels like a good person.
A good person, right?
But she's done a lot of really bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So it's tough to say.
Yeah.
But I think that would be the big like with Foundation, with Empire alone, you get 3 really interesting characters right there.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference. My dad pointed this out to me through text message, and I don't think we've really harped on this. This show has done a pretty incredible job of minimizing budget by keeping things indoors. Like, we get a couple of shots at the top of this episode of like a spaceship landing and stuff, but they're really keeping the scale zoomed in on the indoors of these different locations we go to, rather than like this massive, expansive, like, because they don't have the budget of a, major motion picture like Dune or Dune Part 2. But that kind of takes away from the show a little bit too, I feel like, just because you're set up going into the Dune universe, like expecting this epic scale, and then it's kind of like...
Yeah, that was always going to be a difficult part, is to like bring this from like... what makes those Dune movies hum is their epicness and their scale and the visual, the things that Denis Villeneuve does visually, and like you're converting that into like a chamber drama,
right?
And it's like, is that necessarily going to play? And I don't think they haven't necessarily done enough to like bring reasons why we should care about Dune World into the fold, right? To like reduce our need for that, for the visual epicness.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. Episode 5 is titled "In Blood, Truth." 58 minutes of runtime. The streak is broken. You had to have been thrilled with that.
I was stoked. I was happy. Yeah.
Written by Carlito Rodriguez and Leah Benedez Rodriguez. Not sure their relation or if they're related at all. Haven't looked into it. Directed by Anna Foster, who's done at least one other episode.
Yeah.
Penultimate prophecy starts with the Emperor Havico Corino announcing a new elite regiment of Imperial soldiers and naming Desmond Hart his new Bashar.
Yeah.
To lead these soldiers and eradicate. Yeah. This guy's just climbing up the corporate ladder like nobody's business.
Hey, does Travis Fimmel, is that a natural like eye wonk that he has, or are they doing that for the show?
Oh, it's natural.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything he's doing is natural. That's just him, man. Like,
so he's got like the one eye that kind of like looks in a little bit.
Yeah. He could not be more fascinating visually.
I was thinking about him in this scene when he's like all decked out in the new kit.
Yeah, he's got a new uniform.
I was just like watching him, and like he's got like the twisty, almost like they're like bordering on dreads that he's got going, and his whole look. And I was like,
almost piratey.
I was like, all right, you're Travis Fimmel. You look in the mirror one day and you're like, I'm going to get cast in stuff. Like, people want what is happening here. Like, do you think like he realized that and he was like, now I have to go, all I have to do is take like 4 or 5 acting classes, get just good enough.
Just hone in on my shit.
I'm set.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to be able to deny this look. This thing that I do, this thing that I have, right?
I mean, he's really, really good at what he does.
Yeah.
Like but this character he's playing, it's drawing from a lot of the same things that his character in Vikings does.
But do you know what I mean? Like, what are the odds that this dude, just from like, 14 years old, was like,
I want to be an actor.
I want to be an actor.
And like started doing like taking it super seriously.
And then he just happened to have this like incredible, highly specific look. I feel like somebody like saw him in like the Icelandic grocery store or wherever he's from and was like, you sir, I need you for this show. And he gets cast in like this like bit part. Maybe you
don't think he went to Juilliard?
Maybe even he's just like an extra in like some Nordic pirate show or whatever. And then like he gets the feel for it. The Vikings people come calling and they're like, put him in a few acting classes, and then it's off to the races.
I can't we don't have time to do a ton of research on Travis Fimmel's career, but I do have a little AI overview here from Google because this is the one good thing AI has brought us so far.
AI overview?
Is these like summaries.
Yeah.
It says he studied acting with Ivana Chubbuck, a Hollywood acting coach who has also worked with Brad Pitt, Jared Leto, Jake Gyllenhaal, Eva Mendes, Halle Berry, and Charlize Theron. Fimmel moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting and began studying with Chubbuck within a week.
Okay.
So it sounds like he got out there and immediately somebody that was a pretty world-renowned coach was like, yep, you've got the look, you know? So, but yeah, these soldiers and the new Bashar, Desmond Hart, are supposed to eradicate treason and serve the Carino house with honor and loyalty. They do a flyover, like there's like 5 fighter jets, like it's a big NFL game. And he is tasked essentially with taking out the insurgency that attempted to assassinate everyone last week. He's going to go find the rebels, right? Princess Yanez is very upset by this, obviously. She storms off from this ceremony pretty much immediately after the flyover. She's angry, but still apparently part of the family, even though she like stood up and called out her entire house directly at this high council meeting last week. I just thought there might be more punishment for her, or like you're not invited to the official business anymore. But she's still there. Dad kind of just ignores her.
Yeah, they want her to continue fulfilling her familial duties.
Yeah.
You know, United Front.
United Front. Yeah. You see that a lot.
Sure.
Haviko's baby mama, Constantine's mom.
Pardoned her.
Yeah. Constantine's mom shows up, Sister Francesca.
Yeah.
And she's played by a massive Bollywood star who goes by one name. Taboo. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but it's Tabu. So.
Okay.
Taboo?
I think that
Taboo?
taboo.
Yeah, anybody that gets to go by one name like this is legit. The Empress is not stoked on Sister Francesca's presence. Yeah. But Francesca claims she's there to see her son, that he called for her, which I think is a lie. I'm pretty sure that Valya sent this woman here. And she pretty much immediately starts hitting Haviko with like goo-goo eyes. She's not even trying to hide it. She's just like seductively staring.
My man.
Yeah.
Hey, Big Poppy.
Yeah.
Well, do we know if Constantine is he seems like the older brother, right? Or is he a younger brother?
I don't know.
He's giving older, but maybe he's actually younger.
Similar in age, though, I think.
Right.
My impression is this was an affair that occurred.
Well, naturally, but like...
Well, it could have been like prior to his engagement to the Empress.
That's what I'm
something.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I don't know.
But I'm wondering if this that's why I ask, because it kind of seems like his relationship with Francesca perhaps predates his relationship with the Empress, or was it just like an illicit affair while he was married, that type of thing?
Yeah, hard to say, but the Empress clearly not comfortable.
I don't know.
With her
I'm just
being
if
there.
This is like the woman that like your husband had an affair with and like birth and then gave birth to this bastard boy basically, right? It seems like you'd be even less chill about her being here, almost.
Yeah, I think.
I know that
given
this is we're sort of doing like medieval times here, so it's just like mistress, whatever.
Yeah,
no harm, no foul.
No,
that's,
but I think
cool, Haviko.
I think based on what you're saying, it was probably prior to their marriage.
Maybe. Yeah.
But who's to say?
It's hard to say. Yeah.
Who's to say? In her private quarters, Princess Yanez rips into her brother Constantine for not supporting her in her efforts against Desmond Hart. He's real sorry. That's the gist of that scene. On Wallach 9, Acolyte Jin, the contrarian, is really upset that everyone is having the same nightmare, except her, of course, and she's kind of yelling about it in one of these little meetings that they have. And Hawk Tula comes in and tells her and the other acolytes that the truth is they're dealing with a grave situation, both here on Wallach 9 and elsewhere. But she doesn't really specify as to what that situation is. But says they can either remember their duty and perform it or leave. Which, as the episode goes on, we find out a lot of the girls were like, maybe I should leave. And they're like requesting to go home because they're freaking out about what's happening here and nobody being transparent.
Right, nobody will tell.
Yeah. Hawk Tula takes Sister Jen, whose sleep is still interrupted because she might be resistant to whatever is causing their nightmares, and she takes her to see the reincarnation of Lila. It turns out Lila is being intermittently possessed by her foremothers. She's not doing well. She like opens the little viewing thing and she fucking pops up like a wild monkey.
But then they just bang on in there.
I know. I didn't think they were just gonna go in. She seemed dangerous.
Yeah, so I didn't know what the window slat opening is, just to like make sure she's still in there. Because they do that jump scare, and then they're like, "Yep, she's in there," and then they just charge right on.
Go in and hold her down and like strap her to the table. Yeah.
It
was weird. Hawk Tulla tells.
They had to get a beat on her. They had to,
and that was what they were looking for. The screaming banshee.
They couldn't let her like be hiding in like a corner or something like that.
Pop out and attack them with something. Right. So Hawk Tulla explains to Jin that she found a way for Lila to survive, that they will need to guide Lila back to herself, and that in time, the ancestors will settle and Lila will learn to manage them. And of course, Jin is like, Jesus, what have you done? What have you done to my friend?
Did you take this to mean that like everybody that goes through the agony has to manage their foremothers? Or this is a special case where like she got way too possessed by the foremothers, and the foremothers basically like own half of her body now.
Yeah.
And that for her to live at all, to her to stay in existence, she is basically just going to have to share that vessel with like 7 other people.
And it's like a timeshare. Like they each get to pop in for a little while, but like they don't know how long the possession is going to last.
Yeah.
My impression was that this is a result of her being brought back.
Right.
That, you know, if you survive the agony and you manage it properly and you come back out, in the way you want to, I don't think this is what you deal with the rest of your life.
Got it.
So I think this is a consequence of the reincarnation.
That sounds right. Okay.
Pretty much immediately, like they're in there for like 3 minutes, and Tula's like, "Tired, get her strapped down, get her legs, so eventually she'll recover. All right, I gotta run. Here's a light sedative, just in case you need it as a last resort. You're her homie, you take care of her, I've got business to attend to," and just like dumps Jin there. Which just made me wonder, like, isn't anybody else going to ask, like, where the hell is Sister Jin?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Back on Salusa Secundus, Constantine goes and sees his mother, Sister Francesca. He tells her that Kasha died. Did you get a feel for what Sister Francesca's relationship is to Kasha? Is it just that they're sisters in the Sisterhood and that's why she knew her?
Yes.
Because I almost thought, like, is there some other, were they related?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, they clearly allow biological sisters into the Sisterhood. You got Hawk Tulla and Valya right there. So I just didn't know if maybe they were blood. Perhaps not. I don't think there was any confirmation one way or the other.
I know that in the Behind the Veil after this episode, they talk about how they needed somebody to like come in this fifth episode and like shake things up a bit, or however they phrase it. Did you watch that?
Yeah.
So they talk about bringing her in. So so I could be wrong about this, but I get the sense, and again, this is just part of dealing with knowing that there were some like tumultuous things happening behind the scenes and some flips and some flops and like some stuff that they had to like cut away and like reshoot and like blah blah blah. I kind of got the sense that this was like either shoehorned in or that this story had way more to it at some point.
Gotcha.
Did you get that sense at all?
Maybe a little bit. I'm seeing people speculating online that Francesca was Haruko's original truthsayer, and then because they fell in love and had a relationship, that she left and was replaced by Kasha, and maybe that's why she would have like a personal connection to Kasha. I don't know.
That's possible. But no, I think what they kind of are really, it just seems like what they're trying to set up here is that she wasn't told about Kasha, right? And so
she's being kept in the dark to some degree.
Right. And so that's more like secrecy and kind of like truth keeping on the behalf of like Valya and Tulla,
right,
who don't seem to be sharing all of the news with this wide network of sisters.
Anybody, really.
They very much seem to be keeping things close to the vest, even the things that kind of pertain to everybody.
Yeah, we even see Francesca approach Valya upset that she did not tell her about Kasha, and Valya tells Francesca that the Emperor refuses a truthsayer, basically that they're in a bad spot here. His new Bashar is leading them on what she called a despotic path. Not looking it up. Don't just bad path.
Well, that means that he would be on his way to becoming a despot, which is basically like an authoritarian ruler of
tyrannical.
Sorts. A tyrannical.
All
ruler.
right, I did look it up. I'm looking it up. Valya wants Francesca to guide Emperor Carino back to the Sisterhood and allow Yanez and get them to allow Yanez to study on Wallach 9 as well. And she wants her to convince Carino to name Constantine the head of his new Imperial fleet that he got from the Richesses, which I'm still caught up on the Richesses because they basically showed up. We're like, we're doing a deal. We'll marry our son to your daughter. And then the Emperor's new right-hand man kills their son and is like, and I'm keeping the fleet. Now go back home. Just like, man, they got real screwed there, House Richesi.
They really did. Okay, this is actually not. I thought about this in the previously on section before the episode, and so it's a good spot to bring it up. Are there guns in Dune World?
Yeah,
but at least in the 10,000 years later.
Yeah,
so we don't know about right now.
We haven't seen anyone use a gun.
We haven't seen any guns. Okay, all right. I got to thinking, like,
it's a good question.
What is so good about Desmond's power, except for the fact that maybe, and we're still unclear on this yet, even though he says that he did, he can maybe burn somebody alive from, like, 4 light years away or whatever it is,
right.
From long distance.
He was not close to Kasha when she died. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now I still think maybe there's something more to that.
There might be a twist in there.
Yeah. But otherwise, this power that he has to just, like, burn people alive with his mind, what's any better about that than just being able to shoot them with a gun?
I'm guessing proximity, at least at this point, right? Like, he doesn't have to be that close to him. Maybe. We don't know. I just, the gruesomeness of it, the fear of it, not having to aim.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just something.
Why couldn't somebody just pull out a gun and pop this dude?
Or them? Like, yeah, like what I'm trying to say is, like, I guess yes, there's, like, an element of, like, of what's the word I'm looking for? Like
an honor code?
Not normalness. There's like a paranormal type thing.
Yeah,
like he's magical or whatever.
He's got powers.
So that's interesting, I guess, if you're standing there watching. But there's really no difference between him just, like, walking up and, like, executing each of these dudes with a gun.
Maybe not,
right?
And it's a good point. And on top of that, when he uses his power,
it really
dies. Hurts him a lot. Yeah. That's not necessarily the case. You get some, blowback or whatever with a gun, but
so it's, like, cool. But so far, with everybody except for Kasha, he could have just strangled them, stabbed them with a sword, shot them with a gun,
cut their throat, what everybody else is doing.
Any other way to murder them, right? Maybe this thing that he does, like, scares people away from trying to interfere, or
I guess that nobody has seen it before.
Gives
They're
him
like,
this
wow.
godlike power of sorts.
Like,
I
what
guess.
else is he capable of?
Right.
Could he do this to a large group of us all at once? Who knows? I think it's more the fear that is created as a result of it.
True.
It shows, focuses on fear a lot.
Yeah, fear is the mind killer.
Definitely a theme.
Okay,
yeah.
Onward.
It brings obliteration, the fear. So,
and it lives. Do you know where fear lives?
In the amygdala.
No, I think it was the medulla oblongata.
Oh, yeah. Medulla oblongata. Well played. But yeah, so this whole thing is Valya's...
You're right, though. It's the amygdala.
It's Valya's plan. I'm glad I remembered that. Brain science. Valya's plan is to use Francesca to get the Emperor back in their good graces and to really just to force him almost to put Constantine as the head of the Imperial fleet and to allow Yanez to study on Wallach 9. Haro Harkonnen, Valya's nephew, visits the new Bashar Desmond Hart and apologizes for what he did at the High Council. He says it was poor judgment and he did what he did at his aunt's suggestion, that he was misguided, and that woman, Valya, does nothing but bring shame to their house. And you really believe him here. I was like, oh, he's betraying Valya. Of course, we know Valya got him to do this as well.
Yep.
So she's pulling a bunch of different strings here in this episode, Valya, although she is not on screen all that often. So Desmond Hart starts snorting spice and tells Haro that he wants to know, like, what the ties are between the Sisterhood and the Rebellion. That's the next thing he wants to find out. He makes Haro do a bump as well. Over the course of this episode, you really start to see, like, why Desmond Hart acts the way he does. I think he might just be high on spice all of the time, like a legit spice addict. Hart tasks Harrow with finding out this connection between the Sisterhood and the Rebellion and says if he does, the Imperial House will reward him. So Harrow tells him he does know something, that basically the gist of it is there's an underground market run by Iraqian smugglers, and he thinks the rebels who just tried to do this terrorist attack on the Capitol went through this underground market to sold spice to raise the Solari, which is the currency, that they would need to buy the thinking machine to enact the attack.
There you go.
Okay, so he suggests that Desmond Hart go and question the smugglers to find out exactly who the insurgents are and where to find them and who they're in league with, right? So he's giving Desmond Hart his next move. So Desmond Hart tells him that's a start, but to clear his whole name, he'll need proof that his Aunt Valya is involved. And then he slides him a little magic ball.
No idea what that was.
What the heck? So it's I think it's glowing like orange, and then he takes it out of the case and it starts glowing like blue.
Is it a thinking machine of sorts?
I have no clue. It never gets touched on. Obviously, this is going to come up somehow in the finale.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
But I was like, what? I mean, he looked at it like he knew what it was and was intimidated by it. But
or
I really
impressed
don't.
by it,
or impressed by it. Yeah.
Happy to own one
In all of it.
Yeah, in all. Yeah, definitely.
But that was a strange moment there. Desmond Hart goes and sees the Swordmaster Atreides, and, watching this, you think he's about to arrest this guy. But then he just asks him if he'd like to join his team hunting insurgents. It almost seems like Desmond knew the Atreides is like one of the rebels, but in the end he leaves him to train with Constantine. It was just another kind of a weird moment where...
No, I I thought this was just totally to head fake the audience.
Yeah? You don't think there was anything deeper there?
No.
Just a classic head fake.
Yeah, he's like, oh... This guy, he likes swords. Like maybe he wants to come on out with the old new Bashir.
He knows how to fight.
Yeah.
Bashir. Yeah, my only.
And then he's like, "Oh, you have a dance lesson."
Yeah, you got something. You're busy. You got an appointment. Never mind.
No, he's not. He can't just let this guy just float about knowing he's an insurgent.
The only reason it was curious is because they're related. Like Desmond Hart is half Atreides.
Okay.
This dude is an Atreides. And we still don't know, like as has been brought up repeatedly, including by Valya in this season, we don't know who's behind Desmond Hart.
Correct.
Like it seems pretty clear that he's probably not acting as like a lone agent.
And we don't know what he knows, right? He knows his mom.
We never know what he knows.
We know he knows that his mom left him or gave him away or whatever.
Right.
But we don't know if he knows who his mom is.
Right. Yeah. Just that she was a sister. Yeah.
Atreides
tells Constantine his lesson for the day is that he has to stop making excuses for himself and take responsibility for his own actions, and that he won't teach him anymore if he doesn't take it seriously, and then he leaves. And at first I was like, well, that was a stupid scene. It does tie in later, though, and I caught this more on my rewatch this morning, that this pisses Constantine off. He takes this sort of as like a slight or a disrespect. So just hold on to that. So the Atreides then goes immediately and warns Michaela, the blue-eyed bartender, that there is a task force looking for them and that she needs to get off the planet. He's like, you got to get the hell out of here. Desmond Hart is coming. But she says, like, let Desmond Hart come. Basically, I've got explosives.
Yeah.
I've got a counter here. I've got to move. Back on Wallach 9, Sister Jen talks with who she believes to be Sister Lila. Lila says the nightmare wasn't a nightmare. It was prescience. That it's the reckoning that will drive the Imperial to tyranny if he succeeds, which it sounds like is probably Desmond Hart, and humanity will backslide through self-destruction. It turns out Lila's possessed by OG Mother Superior Rakella, which Jin pretty quickly figures out and takes her possessed Lila to see Sister Tula, and Mother Superior Rakella like quickly gets to work.
They do some lab work.
Yeah, they're gonna analyze Sister Kasha's brain stem.
Yeah,
which they somehow got. This didn't really work for me, this whole little segment here. But Rakella asks if her granddaughter Dorothea and Valya ever resolved their differences. Tula tells her no, or like gives her like a look that indicates no, they did not. And Rakella seems to realize that means that Valya killed Dorothea or did away with her. Because she says something in response like, your sister... Like nothing gets past her. You can't, you know what I mean? Like nothing changes her resolve. Like she keeps going no matter what. But Rakella feels she was right to task Valya with continuing her work. I don't love the Lila possession thing because you're still looking at Lila and like they she never says, I'm Mother Rakella. They're like, Mother Rakella? Like, Tula says it.
Yeah.
But I don't think she really like confirms it. It just leaves this murkiness and this uncertainty that like whoever has possessed Lila could be lying or misrepresenting herself.
Okay.
I don't think that was exactly what we were probably supposed to take away from this scene. I think it probably was legitimately Rakella.
Yeah, seems like it.
But it was like, anyway, they find an enzyme in Kasha's amygdala, the fear center of her brain, that Mother Superior Rakella recognizes from something back in the Machine Wars. I was just like, yeah, whatever. That's great. That's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a virus, a genetically modified airborne retrovirus.
Right. So it's a virus, and it's airborne.
And Desmond Hart sends it.
Yeah,
Or,
something. Yes.
What they're talking about, the virus is what they assume caused her to burn from the inside out, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so yeah.
Or at the very least was giving her that dream, right? Was giving her the terrifying dream.
And then maybe that's what's got all these other sisters dreaming that way.
Right.
This virus, this airborne virus.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully we get more on that next episode.
That's a good point, though. There's no distinction yet between whether that airborne virus
eventually causes you to burn out.
The burning was caused by the dream or by the burning out necessarily.
I mean, we don't know that Little Lord Richesi had any crazy dreams.
Correct.
So, yeah. But old Sister Avila, the old lady sister, is knocking on the door, like, what the hell are they? Who you got in there? And Tula's like, it's none of your business. Don't worry about it. You don't want to know. But Lila just comes out. Mother Rakella, possessed Lila, comes out and says, that it's a genetically modified virus and goes back inside. And Sister Avila's like, abomination! But Tula puts her in her place and tells her not to utter a word of this to anybody, but you can just tell this old lady is like, she's not going to survive this season. There's no chance. Valya goes and meets with her nephew Haro, and it turns out everything Haro said to Desmond Hart earlier was all part of Valya's plan. She tells him his eagerness to help the Bashar will get House Harkonnen back into the Emperor's good graces. Then she puts the House Harkonnen ring on his finger to indicate that he is now the head of House Harkonnen after Uncle Evgeny, a.k.a. Robert Baratheon's death.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I liked this scene. I thought this was like a little bit of like a good repartee between Valya and Haro. It was a simple twist that Haro had been there had been giving Desmond something on behalf of Valya, that was like another little
play,
another little double cross, but I thought did a nice job of kind of continuing to show the gamesmanship and the fact that Valya can get a foot ahead of Desmond at the very least. And then I just thought that it was well acted. I don't know, it stood out to me in an episode that continued to remind me of the C+ version of Game of Thrones. I thought this little scene between these two kind of like, I don't know, just felt a level up from some of the other stuff that was happening, and I don't know why, but I wanted to call it out.
Especially because I think Haro is still very unsure of his aunt, Valya.
Yeah.
Like, I think he means some of what he said to Desmond Hart, which is why it works. He's like, this woman, every time she's telling somebody to do something, it's for some other reason that she has hidden, right?
Yeah, and that comes up again here, right? She says, "What if only I had a truth sayer to tell whether you were telling the truth or not?"
Right.
And she says that he just has to trust her.
Yeah.
But very much a central, I think, a central theme of this entire season is this question that we've asked before, but like, what is more important to Valya? Is it elevating the Harkonnens? Is this a long con that she's been running? Or is it the Sisterhood? Or is it something else? Like her intentions are very,
murky.
Yes, at best. And we're seeing that play out with Tula's treatment of the acolytes and the other mothers there on Wallach 9, and we're seeing it with Valya and her play with Francesca and the way that she like maneuvers and operates all of these pawns very much is like puppet mastering, but like what to what end, basically.
Yeah, it seems like one of the show's central messages is that people will do things under the guise of being for the greater good.
Right.
But they're always for personal reasons that are never revealed to the masses.
Yes, which is echoed again at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
So that's a great, nice way to put it there.
After Haro leaves, Theodosia, who is with Valya still, questions how Sister Francesca factors into Valya's plan. And Valya explains that one day her and the other sisters will learn about something called imprinting, which is creating an emotional and physical bond with someone that never breaks in order to control them. And we even get a scene later in the episode that straight up shows Francesca putting her
hand
to
Francesca
right on his chest, like, this is me doing the imprinting. You know what I mean? It was kind of on the nose.
Yeah.
But so that's another power that some of these sisters can harness, right? And it seems like sex is involved because she says emotional and physical bond. And clearly Francesca had sex with Carino and created Constantine.
Correct.
So we go straight to watching Francesca convincing Carino to make Constantine the head of his new fleet. They make out, but then she pushes him away pretty immediately, leaving him wanting more, like a pro. Carino is the ultimate puppet. Like, this whole show is just him being puppeted by different people. He's getting played by like 3 different people right now. He's got his wife, the Empress, who clearly has ulterior motives and some sort of weird history and background that we're not aware of, which we'll get to at the end of the episode. He's got Desmond Hart, now Francesca. You know, he's just getting played left and right. Poor guy. Not great at his job. Today's episode is brought to you by our listeners who are kind and supportive enough of this show to subscribe on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles in exchange for exclusive episodes of our show ad-free. This week on Patreon, we'll be taking hotline calls from our listeners, driving further discussion around the penultimate episode of Dune Prophecy, but we have done that every week but one because we had Thanksgiving off. So there are three available Patreon episodes already for the Dune Prophecy season. If you're in the Mollusk Militia, obviously, this is a reminder to get your hotline calls in now about the 5th episode of Dune Prophecy. But every week on Patreon, with the exception of holidays like Thanksgiving, we release an ad-free episode of our podcast available exclusively to subscribers. And there on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, we further digest and discuss the latest episode of whatever show we are covering, taking hotline calls from our listeners, answering questions, addressing theories, speculating about what comes next. And if you listen to our show every week, you're aware we often make mistakes, say things wrong. We don't do that. We usually correct those things on Patreon with the help of the Clam Fam, which is nice. So on Patreon we've got ad-free hotline.
What you're saying is that if you're screaming at your car radio at us,
this is the place that will make you feel better.
You should join the Patreon.
Exactly. Yeah, so we've got ad-free hotline call episodes for most recently The Penguin, also House of the Dragon, Shogun, the final season of Succession, The Last of Us, The White Lotus, Silo, Foundation, and more, all on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. It's just $5 to subscribe and gain access to our entire catalog of ad-free Patreon exclusive episodes, including our entire companion podcast for The Sopranos, which is friendly to first-timers and rewatchers. Patreon is the only place to find our Sopranos podcast. We pretty regularly get messages, DMs, tweets, etc., from people being like, where are the Sopranos pods? I started my rewatch. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. And on top of that, Patreon is home to our movie club featuring companion podcasts for Dune Part 2, which is relevant, Oppenheimer, Saltburn, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, Interstellar, Joker, Casino Royale, Tenet, Ex Machina, 1917, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and more. Subscribe on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles today to support our show and immediately gain access to all of the aforementioned. And right now there's a 7-day free trial available, so you can get in there, see what our Patreon page is all about. Won't cost you a dime for 7 days, Barrett.
We've done mailbags, grab bags, listener questions. Top 5 Christmas movies comes to mind for the holiday season. There's a lot to dig around in.
It might have even been top 10. I don't know.
I think we each did top 5.
Oh, okay. Well, 5 plus 5.
That's true. That is there's 10. We definitely talked about at least 10 Christmas movies.
Yeah. Also, we've been doing Silo Season 2 talk on Patreon.
That's right.
The 3 episodes we've put out for Dune Prophecy. We have done Silo talk during those as well. I will note the White Lotus Season 3 trailer dropped today. Barrett and I will definitely be commenting on that on this week's Patreon to some degree. Get in there, Patreon, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Subscribe, support the show. Let them know we sent you. You know? Let us know we sent you. So Desmond Hart and his Imperial Raiders show up to the bar that the rebels were using as their hangout. Sister Michaela, the blue-eyed bartender, meets Desmond Hart, who immediately starts questioning her, and then the raiders tear the club up like 3-6 Mafia. They search the club. The Atreides kills 2 of them. Desmond Hart finds the spice drums and immediately starts like a Tony Montana impression. He just like walks by one and like scoops some out and starts huffing it.
When like he picks up a piece of clothing.
Okay, yeah. Let's get to, hold on.
Okay,
Wait for 1 second, but yes. So the Atreides finishes planting all the explosives that Michaela has provided him with. Then he and Michaela escape just before the whole place goes kaboom. During the escape, the Atreides sees that Michaela is a professionally trained fighting badass, and he's like, "You lying?"
And because it's her knife, especially.
Oh yes, you're right. She identifies the knife.
She whips out is a signature of the Sisterhood.
She goes very hard though.
Yeah.
Great combat actress. Like that was the best physical fight scene I have seen so far.
Yeah,
I
was
really
good.
liked it.
My one note on it is that she did not take the knife and throw it at the wall.
Oh shit, you're right.
Thereby pinning something small and hard to aim at on the wall.
Oh man, yeah.
And so I was kind of taken aback a little bit because I was like, wait, she's an amazing knifeswoman, but how do I know that? Because she didn't do the throw it at the wall thingy.
Yeah. It can't be confirmed.
I can't be confirmed.
Maybe next episode.
Was that a beginner's luck or a fluke?
That's a good question.
Or does she have the gift of knife play?
As we noted last week, until you pin something to the wall with that knife, no look.
No, from like a minimum 10 feet away.
How could we know?
How can we know?
Yeah.
No, is she? Yeah, I like. Yeah, she's one of my favorite performances on the show at the moment.
And they made it a lot. Like one of the things Desmond Hart brings up to her is like, you're clearly Iraqian or from Arrakis.
Fremen. She's a Fremen.
You're a Fremen. What the hell are you doing here? And working with these rebels. And then the Atreides brings that up to her as well, but we'll get to that. So, of course, Desmond Hart finds a uniform. I think this is what I think it was. I think it's the Swordmaster's uniform that he picks up.
Okay.
That lets him know the Atreides is a mole. That is my guess.
Okay. I was unclear. That was my first guess, is that it was something that informed him of the Atreides
being a traitor.
But Laura suggested that it was Michaela's sisterhood garb.
Oh, that could be the case as well.
So I'm not sure.
Not sure either.
And then because Constantine finds evidence that reveals
the Atreides traitor,
the spy,
then you don't need this.
Then you don't need his again. So now I'm leaning towards that it's
her outfit.
That it's her outfit, and that what that did is suggest that the Sisterhood is involved in the rebellion, essentially.
Gives him that confirmation he wanted.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes way more sense. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah, people got to stop leaving their shit out. What is this?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
How
about be a little bit more,
discretion?
Yeah, discreet. Correct.
Hide stuff better. Come on, guys. So once they're safely outside, the Atreides calls out Michaela for being a member of the Sisterhood and lying to him and the rebellion, and he shames her for going against her own people on Arrakis and tells her he never wants to see her again, and then just walks off. So Desmond Hart survives, of course. He uses his little personal shield right before the explosion to protect himself, which just felt like bullshit. I was just
convenient.
like, son of a
Yes.
bitch.
Yeah. Yep.
He just walks out, dusts himself off, and walks out of this place. At the Capitol, Constantine is like angrily training by himself, just like beating the living shit out of one of these sword dummies. And his mommy, Sister Francesca, comes in and tells him, they have a conversation, and he's like, the Sisterhood never does anything without a purpose. What was the purpose of me? And she's like, your purpose is to protect your sister from anyone who wants to do her harm, including those who claim to love her. And they don't spell it out for you here, but I'm pretty sure she like impresses upon him that he needs to go search the Atreides room.
Okay.
Because he knows the Atreides pretends to love his sister.
Right.
And I'm 99% sure that's like the push here.
That's a good, yes. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Because otherwise this conversation makes no sense. You're just like, what?
It does seem very leading. So it does seem like she's pushing him in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Now, question. What he finds there, is that a plant? Or is it just dumbass
He's
just
also an idiot.
leave it in his locker?
Oh, it's a really good question. Probably a plant. Because again, why the hell would he just have that sitting there for anybody to come across?
Seriously.
Like, it just doesn't
Just
make...
fully unlocked, just in his little box there, like, seems dumb.
Yeah, and to that point, it makes me wonder if the fucking outfit was a plant too that Desmond Hart finds. Or like, why would these things just be out anyway? Especially because, look, Michaela knew Desmond Hart was coming to search the fucking club. Wouldn't one of the first things you do be to get rid of your outfit? And if you know you're going to blow up the club,
yeah,
maybe take your outfit with you or move it. I'm just saying, there's some holes
maybe
there.
she thought it was hidden well enough. I don't know.
It would just get exploded. I
have less of an issue with that one than I do with the little, like, blueprint machine thingy.
Yeah.
Just being in his locker, basically.
Yeah. The only other thing that popped into my head was like, well, I guess there's no reason for him to have that. Absolutely zero reason for the Swordmaster to need like a map of the inner workings of the
and I think it suggests thinking machines and it's
enough.
It's enough. It's
Okay.
evidence for sure.
Back on Wallach 9, Jen questions Hawk Tula about whether or not Lila is just being used for the Sisterhood's gain, which Hawk Tula basically says yes. She's like, look, we're in a time of crisis, sacrifices have to be made. That's the end of that conversation. At the Harkonnen high-rise, Sister Michaela, the blue-eyed bartender, shows up and tells Valya that Desmond Hart survived. Michaela is pissed that she just had to burn years and years of work as a mole for what she sees as nothing. Like, she doesn't understand what came of this.
Yeah, I didn't totally I didn't totally get this. I understand that she's mad that Valya is so cold about it all and just very matter of fact and like it is what it is and like
doesn't tell you more than what you need to know.
Yeah, and basically doesn't seem to give her really any props or thanks or empathy for like, hey, thanks for setting yourself up as an insurgent and a spy while secretly being a sister for the last
however
13
many
years or whatever it's been. We appreciate it. Sorry you had to burn it all down. But also, I kind of understand that part. But this is what happens when you're undercover. Like, you get blown. Like, you have to
pause.
You get made, and you have to shut it all down and flee.
Right.
And so I didn't.
At least she got to take a shot at this dude.
And
it
so
was her idea to blow the whole fucking place up.
Yeah, I didn't totally understand why she was so mad at having like lost this, lost her cover.
I think the reason is that two separate people just gave her shit about betraying the Fremen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like all mixed up inside.
Okay.
That's my read. But Valya gives her directions to their safe house on Arrakis. Michaela says she won't betray her people again the way she did the rebels, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's maybe it has more to do with the fact that they're just like, that her awareness that they're just using the rebels, that they're using everybody.
Oh, that's it.
That they use the Fremen, that...
Yeah.
I think, you're...
Because her friends in the rebellion, most of them are now
all
dead.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So she's got some...
And I like the note about like two people calling her out for essentially kind of like turning her back on her.
Yeah, clearly that's all gotten under her skin. Yeah.
Okay.
Theodosia tells her that the Sisterhood are her people, and Michaela's like, we'll see how long you remain this naive acolyte, and then she leaves. So Constantine sneaks into the Swordmaster Atreides' quarters, finds the map he made of the capital's like ventilation system, and when the Atreides returns, he finds Constantine waiting for him. Constantine thanks him for all he has tried to teach him, says that he reminded him of his purpose, and then has him arrested and does like a really cheesy over-the-top like bow, like, this is the most badass moment of my life so far. Really, really overdoes it. So next, the Emperor hosts a dinner in honor of Constantine and his finding of the traitor in their house.
Yeah.
He names Constantine the head of his new fleet as a result, so all the things that Sister Francesca was tasked with doing on behalf of Valya have come to fruition. This has all worked. And again, it seems like Francesca pulled all the strings to get us to this moment, and with Constantine finding out about the Atreides, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And just to fill in another gap there, the Sisterhood knew the Atreides was part of the rebellion because Michaela, blue-eyed bartender, it was part of the rebellion, right? So the Empress gets increasingly angry about Francesca's presence, and when the Emperor explicitly says, like, I'm very, very proud of you, Constantine, and I know your mother is super proud of you too, and they like share a little unofficial family moment there.
You know what? Now we're talking through this, I think they planted that thing back on him, back in his stuff.
Yeah.
Or unlocked his box or something.
Made it easy to find.
Because Valya's been telling Francesca, right? Isn't she also saying like, or is it all Francesca that's like, we got to get Constantine up in the mix?
No, that was Valya's idea.
Yeah, Valya too, right?
Valya's idea.
Okay. And they know, because they've been working this whole thing, that the Atreides is ready to be offered up.
He's an inside man.
This is a move that they can play.
Yeah.
And then with the conversation about you should really look at the people that say they love her, this all very much seems like it's just like they offered it
all
up on a platter. Yeah.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, if you took part in an attempted terrorist attack, why in the hell would you keep the one thing around? It could very clearly tie you to that.
Yeah.
So the Empress gets angry. She storms off from this dinner. Princess Yanez goes and sees the Atreides, who is now being held in the suspension cell, and she uses truth sense on him.
Mm-hmm. Guess she learned it in like the one day that she studied.
That was bothered me a little. But he says he
natural.
He really does care about her.
She's in the gifted and talented program.
He couldn't go through with the attack, right? Which we had questions about that. Like, did he call off the attack, or did? And it seems like he sort of did stop the attack. Like he did put the vent back on because Yanez was there.
Yes.
And then the attack got stopped anyway because
Correct.
Desmond Hart had the thinking machine.
Yeah.
But we tried to clarify this on Patreon. I think both are true as well, based on what he says here, because she's using truth sense on him. He says he chose her over his principles, but he's still willing to die for his principles anyway. I don't really know what her end game was here in getting this information from him. Maybe just she really genuinely like loves this dude or has feelings for him.
I mean,
wants to
is she going to try to free him potentially?
Maybe. Yeah. Like, was it all real? Was it not? Yeah, because she did seem like she was sort of half on board with it, right? She hates Desmond Hart and everything that her dad's got going on right now. So we'll have to see what Princess Yanez does longer term. The Empress then visits Desmond Hart. And they've had some sparks fly in the last couple episodes.
Yeah, a little bit.
The Empress. They sort of teed this up, but she tells him he's been chosen by Shai Hulud, that she was chosen to lead a legion of worlds into the Imperium and forge a new future, but then the Sisterhood wrested it all away from her. And I was like, wrested?
Is this Dorothea? Is she Dorothea?
Didn't wrestle it away from you? They wrested it away from you? It's just another way of saying it, but I like wrestled more. No, I don't think she's Dorothea, but this is she has some past in history that we are clearly unaware of, that she's been grappling with this whole time unbeknownst to us. So we'll have to see what comes of that. And
she does elaborate a little bit. Like, it seems like she lost some of her influence when Valya came in and was truth saying, and then the Sisterhood also wants her daughter, right? They want to take her daughter. She doesn't like that. But certainly seems like there's a little bit more to the.
And on top of that, Francesca has.
That's right. Francesca's going to steal her man. Yep.
Had a baby with her husband, and actively they like flash over to them like making out again during her little speech here. She asks,
touched my chest.
Yeah, kill him. She asks what they did to Desmond Hart, and we get a little bit more of his story here. And again, this is cut back and forth with the last scene that we'll talk about in a second with old Hawk Tula doing her thing on Wallach 9, but he says the woman who gave birth to him sent him away to live amongst scavengers and left him fighting for scraps just to survive, and she was a sister, but does not name her. The Empress then kisses him and tells him, let us rid the Imperium of these witches forever. On Wallach 9, just very quickly, I'm not sure if this matters, but Jen talks with the real Lila, and I'm pretty sure it's the real Lila.
Seems like Lila's back in control.
But again, I hate not knowing. I hate that it could be like one of her ancestors pretending to be her or whatever. But Lila asks if they got what they needed from her being possessed by Raquella. She's like, I could feel like Mother Raquella like working through me or whatever. Must be a weird experience. She says she's glad she didn't let everybody down. Jen calls her doe eyes a lot, repeatedly in this episode, which I couldn't tell if they were like just best friends or there was like a more intimate relationship between Jen and Lila potentially.
She's calling Lila doe eyes?
Doe eyes. Huh. Yeah, every time it popped up on the subtitles, I was like, I fucking hate that.
I completely missed that.
Yeah. Good for you. It's better if you did. And then finally, Tula receives this message from Valya containing Desmond Hart's blood, asking her to identify his bloodlines. So she processes the DNA sample in the massive supercomputer that they have hidden in the Sisterhood's fucking headquarters. And she sees that he has both Atreides and Harkonnen blood. And the assumption is obvious that she got pregnant with that Atreides before murdering him and his entire family.
Yep.
And then
that one night of passion, you know?
And then you know what she did?
She gave it away.
She abandoned her boy. Yeah, she dropped him off with some scavengers, apparently. So yeah, that was it. And that was obviously a big reveal. The Empress. There was a lot of moving pieces still. Solid penultimate episode from the perspective of like how much setup it did for the finale.
Yeah, for like plot movement. Yeah, sure.
But it, like I said at the top of the pod, there needs to be some magic here in the finale, right? Because it's fine, it's good, it was entertaining. Like, you know, I'm not like so enthralled during this show that I like can't pick up my phone. I've been picking up the phone every once in a while. I'm like,
same.
Let's check the sports scores, see a couple tweets, maybe an Instagram, you know. but it's good. It's well acted. You know, it's just like missing something.
One of the other things that I'll call out, and again, I'm trying to get a grip on it. And so some of the stuff that I say, I'm just kind of like reaching for stuff, just kind of like trying to feel around in the dark. There's probably stuff that you can toss back in my face and say, no, that's not why. But one of the things that this episode made me think of is just like, okay, when you're dealing with sci-fi especially, but any kind of like otherworldly thing, it's important to like set up the game, basically, and like set up the rules of the world. These are things that you can do in this world, and these are things that you cannot do. Here are some powers that people have. Here are some other things that people don't have, or whatever it might be, right? And in this show, stuff just gets like dropped on you. Like, oh, they can do that?
They can imprint.
Yeah, like the imprint is a good example. That's not important for us to know early. There's no.
It is frustrating a little bit.
They have not done a great job at like seeding some of these like things that later play important roles, and so it feels like they just keep adding rules to the game as they go, and so it all feels like they all feel like MacGuffins or whatever. Like they're just like, oh well, we need to be able to do that. So here, write this line, and it's like, oh well, actually, there's a thing that somebody can do that stops that, or that does this, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think.
I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but like
you're doing a pretty decent job. Like one of them, the imprinting thing. This episode felt like that to me. I was like, so now they can just some of them can just literally like, have sex with somebody is the gist of it, and then like control them. Have a really easy ability to manipulate them.
Yeah.
And then Theodosia's power felt that way, like, oh, there's a fucking shapeshifter now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you tie like Lila being possessed. There's too many.
Even the Desmond Hart like shield clicky thingy right before the explosion. It's like, well, why don't all these guys just have the fucking shield on then?
Yeah.
They're
in
just
Foundation, only Empire has the shield. You
That's
know?
right.
It's a rule.
But
that's a rule.
But do you see what I mean? Like in Empire, they set up those cuffs early. That's a thing that they talk about and show many times over,
and it becomes a huge deal when anybody else can access those.
So you know, so that that's a great kind of counter example of like those cuff thingies. That shield is something that exists in the Foundation world that only this one person is supposed to have. So it's a big deal if those are used or not used when he takes them off and opens himself up to stuff.
Right,
and they make sure to like play with that.
Yeah.
It's not just kind of like willy-nilly dropped in and then removed when it is most suited for the scene.
Right.
And so there's some little stuff like that they just like, they don't really bother setting up. They just kind of like drop on you. And that's earlier I mentioned Francesca. Her character felt a little bit like that to me in this episode too.
Yeah.
Just kind of like,
we need a plot device to move some of this other stuff around. And so here's this new sister who has a totally different looking hood and came from across the other side of the fucking universe, who's also Constantine's mom and had this affair with Carino. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're hitting on some of why the Lila possession stuff bothers me too, because I'm like, okay, so now we've got this one sister, Lila, who's been reincarnated, but at any given moment can be possessed by one of her foremothers, and we don't really know which one it is unless they self-identify, which they very fucking clearly do not. Mm-hmm. So we're not even really sure that when we're talking to Lila that's Lila. It's really difficult to say. On top of that, you've got Theodosia, who is a literal fucking shapeshifter, who any character we see on screen at any given moment could actually
now
be her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That it's possible
Yep.
in every scene we watch. So that's a little bit frustrating. You've got the imprinting thing going on, which is like, so anybody could not be acting under their own volition or will or whatever. Like anybody could just be doing what they're told because. I think the only really good version of it that you hit on is that Valya pulling all the strings that she pulls and working with her nephew Haro and like, because that's a believable, not supernatural version of manipulation.
Right. It's
just straight up. But there's all these other versions of it that are like, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
That if you don't like kind of rein it in, now it's just chaos everywhere all the time. Anything could be happening with anybody and we just don't know.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks. That's sort of it's a shitty feeling as a viewer. So I'm not, it's not like wrecking the show for me, but it is part of the reason I'm like, okay, yeah, move it along. Let's fucking, what's going to happen? Let's go. Because it's getting so complex.
Now we're peeling this onion back though. And let's just okay, Valya can't use the voice on Desmond. But couldn't she just literally use that on anybody else? He's the only person that's resistant to it.
Why didn't she use it on the Emperor?
So use it on everybody else.
Yeah, not enough voice.
There's just some things that it's like, okay, so again, this comes back to the rules. When can she use the voice? Why can she use the voice? Are there rules around like?
Dude,
does she not use it for a particular
That's a really good point.
They've introduced so many things like this without any real explanation for the do's and don'ts or the yeses and nos.
Where are the parameters at?
There aren't any parameters for all this stuff that they've served up to us.
And you know, it's funny you mentioned that because in the Denis Villeneuve movies, I'm so happy I'm finally saying his name right. I'm so proud of myself. Please clap. They introduced the voice in the first movie. And probably halfway through the second movie, I was like, why is he not just using the voice on everybody? And I think Denny realized, like, this voice thing could be really overpowering.
Yeah.
We're just kind of push this into the back.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come up nearly as often as you think it's going to. Like, they make it a big scene in the first movie. He's, like, learning to use it. He gets his mom to move the water cup, but he doesn't quite get it good enough. And then they have the scene in the helicopter where she's like, you have to find your pitch in sign language or whatever. And she's like, your pitch was too forced. And, like, it is a super fucking power to use this voice and get anyone to do anything you want. And then he really doesn't use it in the second movie all that often. So I think the powers in the Dune universe seem to be a little problematic in terms of like the parameters and when they're used and when they can't be used and who can counter them and what it takes out of you. And like, we didn't even add in the Desmond Hart power to just burn anyone from the inside out. Why doesn't he? Look, if he could burn, this is a really good point and a good thing to end on. If he could burn Kasha from the inside out, from halfway across the universe or whatever, why didn't he just do that to every single one of the sisters? Why didn't he do it to Valya? And that's where I think we get our answer of like, clearly it's not just he can do that whenever he wants.
Right.
And I think that's probably where the airborne virus thing ties in to some extent.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's going to be tough to wrap this all up in the final episode and make it feel...
Yeah.
You just got to get, we don't need all the answers, but we need to get a level of fulfillment that is like worthy of what we've just experienced.
I certainly, based on the way that the show has been going, I'm glad that there aren't 10 episodes. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just finish this season. Y'all go back to the drawing board.
We'll see where we're at.
And see if you can kind of like reset this and maybe fix some of the things and come back fresh for season 2 is where I'm at with it. But I wonder if 8 or 10 episodes would have given them more time.
So that things wouldn't feel just dropped in?
Yes, to do some of that kind of like world building type of rule setting, stage setting.
Yeah.
So that this stuff doesn't just feel so dropped in at random.
Yeah, probably.
And when it's convenient. But
I'm with you. I think with the way this thing has been paced out, 6 episodes, fine.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the finale. Can you make it feel like it paid off?
Yeah.
Like it was worth the ride?
Yeah.
And we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Barrett and I will be on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles later this week, taking hotline calls, diving deeper into the penultimate episode. Maybe we'll get some more answers and insights from the old mollusk militia. Get on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Enjoy a 7-day free trial. check out how awesome the episodes have been so far, the 3 we've done for Dune Prophecy, and then dive back into any of the other stuff we've covered. It's all fun hearing from the Clam Fam and the other listeners with their theories and their questions and seeing how that kind of drives the conversation on Patreon. It's a really enjoyable experience that we'd like you to have. Go to patreon.com/oystersclamscockles today.
I will say, there's a few more things that I have to say about this episode too, and we're out of time for today. But specifically, I think I got some stuff for Patreon.
You got takes?
I got a couple more takes.
Hell yeah. Look at that. Big Barrett tease there for y'all. Oh, man. Mr. Dudley, where can the people find you on social media to keep up with you and your other content?
I am at Barrett Dudley, X, Instagram.
Just call it Twitter.
Who knows? Maybe Blue Sky soon.
It's Twitter. Quit bringing up Blue Sky.
Well, I was a big Threads guy. Such a huge Threads guy.
You were threading the needle.
So, I'm willing to give these other platforms an opportunity to earn my business.
I'm at Boss Rollin' on Blue Sky. I'll say it.
Okay.
I've tweeted twice on there. What do they call it? That's the main thing. What do you don't tweet on Blue Sky?
You blew yourself.
There you go. I've blown myself twice on Blue Sky. Riveting stuff. I've got 2 followers. 2 followers.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Big numbers.
One of them's a bot. One of them's our boy Eric. At WR Bolin on Twitter and Instagram to get me. Go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some merch. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We look forward to hearing everyone's takes and reactions on Patreon and reading them on social media. Until next time, Lisa Nagaib.